It's time to roll for Turaco. Welcome back to Roll for Turaco. This is Frank. In July, when I started the game at the library, I forgot my maps. I forgot the boards I was going to take, but I printed out some cobblestone maps at the library quickly and made my own map. So what I'm going to attempt is to make a UDT Ultimate Dungeon Terrain using those paper maps or paper maps that I printed out. I'll be using a smaller size of UDT. This is from Professor Dungeon Master's channel. He came up with this. His is a little bit bigger. He does make some mini UDTs. This will be a medium that will fit in my bag better. And I used foam board. I already have the maps printed out. I already cut out the foam boards to the shape that I wanted. I trimmed down the paper maps, which I found online. These are 2 cobblestone maps that I just printed twice, and there's a third one that was just a little bit bigger, had some details that I liked. So I'll be using that for my center. The maps are from wildfur.com. That's wild with a Y and fur with 2 R's. These are meant for VTTs, but I print them out because I like them, and I print them out in black and white, and they worked for what I need them to do. All the maps had a white border around them, so I just trimmed those out, and I have the 2 halves ready. They're lined up, and I did trace around them with a pencil, but you can't see that because the lead just blended in with the cobblestone maps. And for the center, I used this spell guide to tell me the ranges of my spells within the game, but I'm using it as a template to make sure that the circles are all lined up. But even doing that, I did draw it a little bit off center, and I'm placing the 2 halves there, making sure they're the right size. They were just a little bit over in some of the edges, which I just trimmed down. But I'm going to be using the same spell template for the center of the UDT. Just the bigger map, has bigger squares and has like little details. There's like a drainage, which I thought was cool. I thought that's a perfect touch. So I'm just folding the edges. I'm eyeballing everything. I didn't use any rulers, tape measures, anything like that, but I drew the circle on the back. I'll be cutting out that circle and begin the gluing process, or in this case, the Mod Podge process. So I already have the first 2 circle halves already Mod Podge on the foam board, and now it's just placing the center in the center. And I did my best to line everything up so it's right in the center, but even doing that, it still came out a little off center, which you can't see because of the pencil marks, but you can see it here after I added marker, after I added the edges there around the circle, and I colored the center with nice yellow. I like how it came out, but the border is still wider. And I did make another mistake. I added Mod Podge on top to give it a little bit of texture, and I think that caused 2 problems. One, I did it right after I glued the center right there in the middle, and I added the textures around, or I added the Mod Podge around for texture, and it started bubbling up. So there's like a big bubble right there on the bottom, or quite a few bubbles. So what I did, I lifted it up and I tried to flatten it out and re-glued it. But ultimately, this part of the process was ruined because I had forgotten to take off the paper layer on the foam board. So what ended up happening is everything peeled off. So that was That was essentially ruined. These mistakes were 100% avoidable. It was my problem because I was rushing the process, but what I did this time, I used the ceramic bowls to make sure that everything is aligned, and I drew every single cobblestone on that foam board and is ready to be painted. And thankfully, I still had some gray paint left. There wasn't that much left, but I had enough that I could uh, put some there in the middle. And with that sponge, I easily spread it around. And that was a very quick process. I didn't really have to do that much to it. You can see there it's already painted. And I used the last drop of the gray paint that I had left. But I do have some black paint and some white paint. And what I did, I mixed a little bit in that bowl. Now, this is the second part of the paint process. I'll be adding it all over on the UDT. And I was able to get some very nice textures. The paint went in the little crevices of the cobblestone, which came out looking great. I added some darker paint on the edges, darker in the center, and I think it's looking good. I'm going to let it dry, and I still have this paper layer from my first attempt, and I do like how that came out, so I might do something with that. The UDT, or the battle terrain, as I've been calling it, it's dried. It looks good. And on the back, I'm going to be adding a tavern. And I'll be doing that in a little bit. But first, what I did with this one, I glued it on cardboard. And on the back, I added a vinyl covering that had this wood pattern. So that's my tavern for that one. And that's quick and easy. Now it's time to work on the back here. And what I did, I made another mistake, but it wasn't as bad. I drew on the paper covering, but I redid it on the foam itself, and it's done. It's dried, and I like how this came out. It looks really nice. Now it's time to see the dungeon in action.
Fight!
This has been RollForTuraco. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to RollForTuraco. Subscribe.